As a busy real estate professional, you probably never guessed that you would also become a homeschooler. Um, Today's episode is with an absolute veteran when it comes to homeschooling. And we talk all about building the right culture in your home for learning. As you listen to this episode, I want you to think about things that you can do to slow down and enjoy the moment. Okay, that's point number one. I want you to also listen for ways that you can extend learning beyond what teachers are giving you, right? And number three, I want you to listen for and think about for yourself, what can you specifically do to model having education be a lifetime pursuit as opposed to just something that we grit our teeth and get through. You're going to love this episode. It's going to help you be a better parent. It's going to help you be a better professional because of the way you show up at home and then into your business. I'm excited for you to listen to it and super grateful for today's guest that you're going to learn all about here in just a minute. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Very excited today to bring you a very dear friend of mine, some friends of mine, and more specifically, a topic that is going to give great hope and great wisdom to those of us that are trying to figure out this homeschool thing. I have with me today Jessica Poe, who is an esteemed author, speaker, and a mother of three wonderful children, some of whom I've actually coached on the soccer field. Fantastic family. I'm good friends with her husband and just have deep admiration for her and for her family and what they do. So Jessica, thank you for being a guest on the Think Bigger Real Estate Show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
I know that I have a number of friends that have been fans of yours. In fact, we have a copy of your book at our home. It was given to us as a gift. We've read parts of it. It's fabulous. It's Everyday Moments with the emphasis on mom. And tell us a little bit about that book. I know that it's really emphasizes kind of enjoying kind of mom life, right? Is that true? Ryan, it's been a little bit of a time.
It can become mundane, just like all quarantine life or any life where you're doing the same thing every day. And so it really it's about looking for life lessons within the small details and moments of everyday life. And there really are. There's so many things that we can learn from right in the midst of just the routine.
Such an appropriate set of lessons for all of us right now. I loved it. Yeah, that book probably has more relevance now than it's ever had because you're right, not just kind of parenthood mundane, but now put us all in the same structure incessantly for weeks and months. And all of a sudden, you have to kind of start to look for lessons because you're right. It can be a little bit of a drag. I know when even we have to keep our kids from the playground, right? Or sneak over when no one's looking. We have this constant kind of new battles, these freedoms that we used to have to get kids out and about and doing things are no longer gone. In fact, I mentioned yesterday, I kind of gave a tribute to moms. I said this ought to be not Mother's Day, but Mother's Year, because like the time when a lot of moms would send kids off to school and regroup and clean the house, like the tornadoes are there all day long, right? Our little 2-year-old that's raising havoc is there with her siblings now. So yeah, there's, to your point, there's all kinds of reasons right now why parents really need to kind of maybe have kind of a mindset shift. And I'm excited to go into that with you today to really start to look for those lessons. And today I know we're going to really talk about building a culture in your home of learning. Talk to us a little bit about maybe why that's important. Now, again, you've been homeschooling for over 10 years, over a decade, and you've learned some things. Talk to us a little bit about kind of this concept of culture and maybe why that matters. We hear a lot about that in the workplace, but not so much in the home.
It's true. It's true. So, how you're talking about how moms, we're really like the CEOs of our company here at home, and we've been used to delegating a lot of our things. So we sent, our kids to piano teachers over here for that part, and we sent our kids to school for this part, and now it's all in our laps, and our whole baby business is right here, and we're in charge of every little detail of it now during this quarantine. So it kind of takes it's a good time to look at our mission statement for our home and see what matters most. What is really the most important thing? A lot of us, I feel bad. I've been homeschooling for 10 years. 14 is how old my oldest is. But I've gotten to choose what curriculum I use. I get to choose what the assignments are. I get to choose all that. And a lot of moms right now aren't in that point. It's all being chosen for them. And in fact, this role as classroom manager or schooling at home manager is given to them. That the one thing that we are in charge of is our culture. So that is sort of like that. It's our mission statement. What matters most to us in our home while we're working through all of this? And it's a good time to kind of reevaluate and think about that. It's more than just getting the assignments done and checking off all those lists. It's how we walk away and how our kids walk away feeling if they feel empowered, if they feel like a love of learning, that's what matters most at our house. But it's important for each family to kind of figure that out for themselves.
That is a great point, is that at the end of the day, the stuff that they're learning, right? The reading, the writing, the arithmetic, of course, it'll build on itself. And those are key principles and things that they're learning now, key skills. But you're right, the way they feel about learning, right? Kind of the way they feel about the whole process, I think is so important. I told you before we started this episode, one of our probably mentors in common, a gentleman by the name of David A. Bednar, who is the university president where I first went to school. He was a new president, younger guy. Everyone was like, come on, who's this guy? He's too young to be, the university president. And he came and he spoke to all of his business students. And he said, there's two things that you need to take away from this college education that are even more important than a degree. And we're kind of like looking around like, what could this be, right? Like, is it a spouse? Is it like, and it wasn't even that. It was, he said two things, which are number one, a love of learning, right? You actually have to love to learn, and you need to learn how to learn. And I've taken that lesson. I've thought about it. It really didn't sink in until I was after I was out of college. And I wish it would have sunk in kind of more deeply at the time, because I probably would have approached my college education differently. I know I approach my life differently now because of that lesson, because of what he said, that really his point was that anything that we learned at that particular university was going to be outdated at some point, right? The world's changing at a faster and faster pace all the time. And so it isn't so much what you learn, it's that you learn how to do it so that you can go learn the new stuff that's out there. And you actually enjoy the process enough that you will do it. And what I hear you saying, Jessica, is that when you're like this schooling at home, kind of being the CEO or the kind of classroom manager, is to really be sure that the mood around education is good. Because if it's this negative, like, I hate school, I hate schoolwork, can't wait to get it done. Like, what is that telling our kids? That at some point there's going to be an end to this, and thank goodness you don't have to do this anymore, and it's over. Thank goodness, right? But what does that do in a world that's innovating and iterating so quickly? Like, they're really going to be left behind. And so you guys, for your culture in your home, has been really about that, right? About kind of learning and education. Talk to us a little bit about that.
And I even have to watch myself, because it's really easy as a mom to be like, okay, we need to get this, and this done so that we can get to this, and this. But if we go at our education like that, like, okay, let's get it done really fast so that we can, whatever this is seems more important than our education. Where it's really like, let's do this first and let's really enjoy it and dive in. It requires me to slow down. I probably, like a lot of your audience, I'm productivity driven. I want to do things quickly, and I really like to get it done. But that's not exactly what cultivating a love of learning is like. It's really about taking time to sink in and enjoy it with your kids, enjoy the experience. And one thing this quarantine is trying to teach us is to slow down, right? And to come at it with a place of rest in our hearts. And when we can do that, I think our kids feel it, and they feel that it's important. And then that love of learning naturally cultivates and grows and fosters right down in there, instead of just looking at like checklists. That's what my natural man tendency to do is think of it as a checklist. We got to get English done, we got to get history done. But when we can really dive in, it's so much fun that way.
It's interesting, that lesson. I was actually kind of opening up to my assistant this morning, sharing how I'm really trying to work on something in me personally that's a bit of a fault. Is that, to your point, I'm very productivity driven. And I sometimes will take that go, get done, get stuff done into the home. And I'm very much a great administrator, right? And it's like, kids do this, kids do that, right? And I sometimes don't stop to enjoy the kids. And I've realized that this is a fault of mine, and that it's causing me to miss out on some of those. Like, my wife has a different relationship with the kids right now, to where she's patient enough to stop and listen. And like, the baby will start crying, and she'll be like, what do you need? And I'm like, stop crying. Like, that, I don't like that sound. Stop it. Someone make her stop, right? My wife's like, no, she's trying to tell us something. Like, and she'll like stop and ask a question and realize that the baby's trying to communicate something to us, right? No, she's 2. She's not that much of a baby, but like, she actually has something to say. And then my wife helps her figure out how to do it. It's just this total like learning, teaching paradigm shift, where I'm just trying to get certain result, which is kids behaving, kids getting their work done, kids staying out of my way. Like, it's terrible, right? And I just, the other day, I'm like becoming more aware of this, and I'm really kind of thoughtfully pondering on how I fix this in myself. And I realized just yesterday, I stopped and spent more time just listening to my kids and not being so productivity driven with them, that all of a sudden, like, their personalities, instead of like, okay, what's dad going to tell me to do? Almost like, okay, here it's coming. I know it's coming. He's going to tell me to stop doing this or start doing this. This is kind of what they've come to expect from me. that I stopped, and I'm still like long ways away from where I want to be. But it was this moment where their personality started to come, and they started to open up and feel less defensive of like, okay, here comes dad's directions. Right.
Mm.
And so to what you're saying is speaking so true to like a journey I'm on right now on how to fix kind of this way that I show up at home. And maybe some, a lot of other people can relate to that. Is there anything else that you've learned? It sounds like you're kind of like, the audience, and that you're productivity driven. What else have you learned to like, just take a breath and not try and always be getting somewhere or getting something done,
There's a great article by a woman, maybe we can link it in your show notes or something, named Diane Hopkins. She's a veteran homeschooler, and she wrote an article called The Baby is the Lesson. I think that's what it was. And it reminded me, when you're talking about your wife's experience, that when the baby cries, it's like slowing down and how you talk to it and you take care of it. She was feeling so overwhelmed with this, that, and the other coming in, and then she was pregnant and going to have another child to throw into the mix. And she was like, how am I going to do it? And she felt a voice whisper to her and say, hey, the baby is the lesson. That is the lesson you're teaching. So I think about that a lot when I'm multitasking. I work from home as well. And so I have to think, and sometimes even talking it out with my kids, it actually teaches them that life is the lesson. Okay, I have these 3 things to do, and I really want to spend time with you. And I kind of talk them through my schedule. They see that they're super important. They also see that as a family unit, we work together to make sure every person is able to accomplish the things they need to do. So I don't feel that guilt between being torn between working and being at school, because they know, and they're in on it too. We're a family. We're all like trying to attack and get it together. We have that same goal. So I think communication is really important with our kids. They understand a lot more than we think. We can simplify it down, but they understand, and then they know, oh, we're going to help support brother or sister. I love to have the olders helping with the youngers, and will you check this? Not only does it reinforce their foundational education, like of math and subtraction and addition, even though they're way beyond that, it just shows them the importance of taking care of those younger than them. So there's life lessons in all of this. They're just layered on it. So when we can find those and bring those out to the forefront and communicate it, I think that helps with that culture, and it helps with our productivity. Oh, it helps that rein that back just a little bit and focus on what matters most.
Boy, that's helpful for me. I appreciate you sharing that. Definitely going to take those things to heart. Talk just a little bit about what you and your husband Alex do. I've been I've been an Alex fan longer than you have, just so you know. I've known your husband. In fact, we kind of share a funny story that we actually dated the same girl, not at the same time. But anyway, like story for another time. Anyway, we've got that in common. We're friends long before the right girl came along for both of us. But the point that I wanted to have you bring out is that education isn't just a K through 12 or even until you get your degree. You guys have established it to where mom and dad are learners as well, right? Maybe how have you done that, and how is that maybe tied into this time right now of homeschooling, right? Or schooling from home, whatever we call it. How have you kind of used that to really kind of create that culture at home of really having a learning environment?
Well, like most things, I think the number one way we can teach something to our children is by first instilling it and teaching it to ourselves, right? That's just how all good leaders are. And so if we want our children to have a love of learning, then we obviously want to have a love of learning too. And it doesn't matter. This is the cool thing. It doesn't matter what. Pick a subject, any subject, start diving in and learning about it. And you watch those kids, it's like flies into honey. They want to learn too. So, okay. My husband won't mind me telling you this, but he wants to learn how to roller skate, and not just roller skate, but like this jam skate, like where you're dancing and roller skating at the same time. So what do you know? All the kids want rollerblades, right? Because they want to like kind of learn on their own way, but they kind of want to follow dad. On the other hand, I'm a bird nerd. I love birds. And so my kids have just kind of got into it because I've gotten into it. They can identify more than 100 species of birds right now. They're better than I am. And we do a lot of backyard birding during this quarantine time, but we also go out to nature preserves and wildlife refuges and look at birds there. And they're really phenomenal. But they don't consider themselves birders. They consider me one, but what do you know? They're better at it than I am. So I think it's just pick something, anything, and then roll with it. And then when your kids get excited, likewise do that. Join them and be excited about whatever it is that they're into. If you've got a kid who's really into cooking, let's just get into the kitchen and do it. it make a mess. Yeah, it's going to make a mess. It's going to take more time. Yes, we have to slow down our to-do list one more time, but it's worth it. And it empowers them. It really does.
It's funny. My wife, as you know, reached out to you, right? It's like kids were coming home to school. She's like, Jessica, help. How do you do this? And you gave some great insight is that, fortunate our church had given some guidance around the fact of like kids like choosing what they want to learn about in different areas of spiritual, physical. And you're like, hey, that's a perfect template. And I think what I'm hearing you say is like, the key is to learn. It's not to learn a specific thing, right? Schools do that. Schools will dictate what they're supposed to be learning. But outside of that, and even in addition to that, let kids choose what they're excited about, right? And you guys modeling stuff that you're excited about, as funny as it may be, is seeing Alex on roller skates. He might not live that. So cool, actually. Pick something, right? Like just pick something and learn about it. I think it's great. And just seeing parents learn. I'm actually reading a book right now called The Slight Edge, and it's a fabulous book. It talks about how the simple daily mundane tasks turn into like a compound effect in your life, right? We all understand compound interest and how these activities act very similarly, and they produce this compound effect if we do them consistently enough. But the challenge is we never change our attitude about those simple mundane things enough to where we actually do them consistently enough to have them work. And so it's all about changing your attitude about those things. It's a really fascinating read. And over and over in the book, it talks about the essential practice of reading 10 pages a day. Like 10 pages a day from a book. And I've started that. And I'm looking at the book, and it was a pretty thick book. I looked yesterday, I'm like over halfway through this thing. And I feel like I just started it. It's like amazing what those simple practices of daily learning as parents can do for creating this culture, right? Of like, we're a learning home. This isn't like we talked about earlier of like, I'm just going to grit my teeth and get through this so I never have to learn again. Like that's, I think, the wrong approach. And the way you guys are going about it is like, no, this is our life. Like we're always going to be learning, whether it's one thing or another.
Absolutely. And as you're mentioning that, I'm thinking how important it is for all parents to know to advocate for your kiddos. So if they're, how you're saying at school, you don't really get to pick which subject you're going to dive into. So say for PE or health or whatever that you're assigned a certain subject, it just does not jive with your kiddo. I am a full believer that you can say to the teacher, hey, you know what? My kid's really into this and we're going to take it in this direction instead, but we're still learning. And I fully believe that, especially at this time of the year, in this particular year, your teachers are going to be fully supportive and say, run with it, go for it. It doesn't matter the facts. It's just learning. That's what's key.
It's interesting. I was talking to a very good friend of mine. She's actually a fan of the show. She'll probably listen to this. I won't use her name because she didn't give me permission, but she said, Justin, I used to work so hard in real estate because I needed to be able to afford like the specialist to be able to help my kids learn in these areas where either they were struggling or I wanted them to focus. And she said, honestly, as I look at it now, I have the capacity and capability to be that for those kids. And so it's like, this has all taught me a bunch of things. She still loves business and she's fabulous at it. Fabulous like real estate agent. But she has kind of this new paradigm of like, you know what, I'm in charge of my kids' education. And there's some things that I probably ought to be doing, or that I don't know that she totally enjoys it, but she's like, I always thought this had to be outsourced. And now I'm realizing that maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe it should actually be me. And I think that this goes along with that theme of like advocating for your kids, is that sometimes that even means like, okay, teachers are awesome. And I think we all have much more deeper appreciation for teachers than ever before, but there's some things that parents get because they get their kids at such a deeper level than anything else that it's like, no, I think they need this, right? We could make a pivot in actually what they're learning.
Yes. And this summer is going to be a little bit of a different kind of a summer. And so as you're saying that, and we're transitioning back and wondering what the fall is going to look like, I'm hoping parents can walk away feeling empowered, children can walk away feeling empowered, and that what we really do is we think about what principles and practices do we want to implement into our life and our family culture for the long term. When you come out of this, what matters most to you for the long term? And then just implementing that right into your culture of your family. Every family's a little bit different. Everyone's has their different quirks and their different fun things, but that love of learning can be kind of woven through any culture, I feel like. And I think that's one of those things that long-term wise, that's really important. So I love that your friend was realizing the benefits of it. And she can do that regardless of if kids go back to school in the fall. You can keep that going all the time.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun. I think there've been so many paradigms, especially if we look for them, right? So many life lessons learned from all of this. that go far beyond health and the things we've learned in that regard, but just about the importance of family, the importance of home. And although at times we may want to run, run away, I know, especially I think moms or even stay-at-home dads, working professional dads are feeling extra burdened this time. And I love just your overall mood of like, just be sure that the mood, right, that the overall feeling and sentiment around education is a positive one, because I do think that plays a big part of what happens next in kids' lives and what happens eventually, right? We're living in a knowledge economy like never before, and what people know and learn and then can do with that is critical to their ability to create a positive livelihood for their family at some point.
And if it does start to feel rough, if it starts to feel like too much, take a mental health day, take a break, go out and play some tennis or hoops, or it's important for parents to take alone time too. I find myself every day around 3 p.m. hiding somewhere. It's just, I need a little bit of time to regroup before I can face the afternoon and evening time. That's totally okay. So I think there is a lot of that. I watched Alex yesterday, he's working, and then my daughter's sitting next to him asking him questions for an assignment that she has, and he's trying to do both and manage. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. It does add on after a while. So take some time to decompress when you need to. That's important.
So good. I want to thank those that are watching live right now with us. Just got some common friends that are giving us some shout outs. So if anybody has any questions for Jessica as we wrap up, feel free to put them in the comments. If we don't answer them during the show, we'll be sure and answer them afterward. So this has been so helpful. I know for me, and I'm sure for everybody else. Is there anything else that you want to add in that would be helpful, Jessica? And you're over 10 years of kind of doing this homeschool thing, and even teaching, writing, authoring, speaking. Is there anything that we've missed that you feel like, hey, this is one other thing that I want to add in that I feel like would be really helpful for parents?
I would just say, really follow your heart. This is an important, it's an important responsibility. It feels weighty, but I also know that we can be inspired and led and guided on how to best help these little people grow into big people. And they're so amazing and resilient. I bet every parent out there is thinking, yeah, because they watch their kids bounce through this, and they're gonna. I was laughing with my father-in-law. He was like, yeah, when I was a kid, I had to walk uphill both ways. And I was like, yeah, well, when my kids were kids, they got sent home and had to wear masks and stay 6 feet apart. That's the story they're gonna be telling their grandkids. Like, it's just insane, but they just smile and keep going with it. It's teaching us so much resilience in that family matters most. I love it. I think it's great. So just follow your heart and follow your kids' hearts, because they will have interest and natural talents and skills implanted within them for a reason. And we can really help grow those, help them bloom.
I love that really at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what are we trying to, we're not just trying to get them through second grade or third grade, or, like the goal is to teach them, turn them into very productive adults, right? Happy, productive adults. And so with that end in mind, right, how do we go back and how do we get them there? And I think that creates a different path than just let's get through school, right? Let's kind of grit our teeth and get through this. And I hope everybody looks back at this time and says, you know what, it was challenging at first, but that was some special time. And I think that a lot of us will look back and say that this was really transformative time, not only in our families' lives, but in the world, right? That really, there was a lot of the clutter that was removed from life. And we were all given a chance to kind of prioritize and realize like, hey, this is actually what's most important. And I'm hoping that this love of learning, that even a love of family amidst the added chaos comes out of this. I know we're working hard in our home to have those feelings as well, despite it not always looking like that or sounding like that.
Your wife's amazing. I've seen the picture with like all the spreads of all the papers below, and she's managing. The more kids you throw in, the trickier it is. She's doing awesome. So good job.
Yeah, she is. I'll tell you what, this would be a totally different story if my patience were in her. If it wouldn't be quite as successful around our house. So anyway, I'm so appreciative of all those again that are sacrificing so much to step up right into new roles that they haven't been in before, and that helps all of us grow. Which again, I think is the point of life, right? Is growth. And seeking growth, seeking happiness. So I want to thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on and contributing. I see you as being a big thinker. Kind of the way that I like to define a big thinker is somebody who recognizes that there's great potential in people, right? And then they work to inspire and help help other people to see the greatness within them. That's kind of my mission and my passion, even with the show, is to wake people up to the reality of how much potential is inside of them, and then to help them to live in pursuit of that potential. Talk to me, because I see you as being a big thinker. What's something that you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your own possibilities? What does that look like for you? Because again, it's not just inside your home, although you're doing a fabulous job there, but you're also, you're an author, you're a speaker. Like, describe to me what that looks like for you to continue to expand your reach and your influence on others.
I just think for me personally, I want to balance the amount of consumption time I have and the amount of creation time I have. Because I find if I'm consuming, so I like to consume and gather information. I think that's really important. That's why we're doing this, so we can learn from different people. And telling stories and sharing our stories is so inspiring. So I spend a lot of time in that area. And then I also need time where I can create on my own and carving out that space, which is tricky. It's tricky to do. So I think talking to people and consuming, whether it's reading books or podcasts or however you consume, and then carving space apart to create, to do whatever it is that drives you, whichever way you're trying to inspire people. So
love that.
Tricky balance.
Love that. Thank you so much for coming on today. Appreciate you. And I want to just thank the audience for tuning in, and for those that have commented already, and appreciate the ongoing support of those that also want to be big thinkers. So my final request of everybody listening today are these 3 simple words, and they are: go, think bigger. Thank you so much, Jessica, for taking time out of your already very busy schedule to come and share and lift all of us. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a
My
blast.
pleasure.